Doc Nuzum here. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in, and here we go. This is our first webinar. Our question is, Doc, why do I always feel sick? Or why do I keep getting sick? Or why don't I ever seem to get better? Okay, that's our question. The answer to that isn't a straight answer. Okay, there's multiple answers to those questions. The first thing we need to discuss is, are you being treated or are you healing? Okay, treatment of disease and healing are not the same thing. Okay, they're diametrically different. Okay, very, very, very different. Okay, first off, treatment of disease, I tell my patients when they come to see me, if you are here for me to treat your disease, you're in the wrong place. Okay, I don't treat disease. I treat my wife. I treat her to dinner, to movie, to coffee, whatnot. All right, because I'm trying to maintain a relationship there. Okay, so I treat her to a movie, to dinner, to coffee. Right. If you're here for me to treat your disease, I'm not going to take it out to dinner. I'm not going to try to settle it down. I'm not going to try to patch things up with that condition that you're dealing with, okay? What I'm going to do, if you're here, what I'm going to do is guide you through the process of healing, okay? Which is totally different than treatment of disease. When you treat a disease rears its head, patient goes to see the doctor, doctor treats disease, doctor gives pills to the disease, settles disease down. Patient's just as sick as they ever were. The patient's no better. They still have the disease, the disease has been settled. Okay, they go a little farther down the road, disease rears its head again. Now they have to take 2 pills to settle disease down. All right, and it's a cycle. They just get stuck in this, and over and over and over, you're constantly treating disease, and disease has to be settled down, and the person never gets better. Now with healing has 3 very, very definable steps. You have to be stable in order to get better, okay? Which is the first step in the healing process. Second, you have to detoxify. No dirty wound will ever heal. Okay, and that applies spiritually, mentally, and physically. No dirty wound will ever heal. It must be cleansed. It has to be detoxified, okay? And your body has to detoxify. If you don't detoxify, you're not going to get better, okay? Everything in your system that's toxic is stopping you from getting better. It's roadblocks, okay? Then finally, you have to fortify. You have to rebuild your system, okay? And that's healing. That's the healing process. Sickness is almost never caused by one particular factor. Okay, there may be a predominant factor in the sickness, but even things like infection, your body has to be in the right state in order for it to become infected. Your immune system is so powerful and so able to defend you that it has to be impaired for you to get infection, okay, to be infected, okay? So you got things like toxins, exposure to bad food, microbes, you got viruses, you got trauma, those types of things all funnel into disease or sickness, okay, and it's never caused by one factor alone, okay. It's an imbalance that causes disease to happen. All right, let me give you an example. We're all born with strep bacteria in our throat. Okay, everyone's born with that. Strep is there. It has a very integral part that it plays in our digestive process. Strep is a microbe that breaks down protein. Okay, and that particular microbe, you eat a steak, you eat an egg, beans or whatever, that microbe attaches to those things and starts to tear them apart. Okay, so they can be more easily digested. Um, Strep never causes a problem as long as the other microbes that keep strep in place, or in its in balance, or in its place. As long as those other microbes are present in sufficient numbers, strep never gets out of hand. Okay, and it's only when the other microbes are missing and the environment is set for strep to just propagate that it starts to propagate, and it propagates and propagates till it gets to such numbers that actually starts to dissolve the protein in your throat, and you have a sore throat. Okay, and we call that strep throat. Now, we go from there. Now, just a side note here: if you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you an antibiotic for that strep throat, it doesn't fix the environment. Okay, that's like paying somebody to come pull one weed out of your front yard. The dandelion is already bloomed and already let all its seeds out. You go have them pull one dandelion out of your front yard. That's like taking an antibiotic for strep. Your yard, if it is the right soil to grow dandelions, will grow dandelions. All it needs is seeds. All right. If your throat has the right environment to grow strep, it will grow strep. It doesn't matter how many antibiotics you take. It doesn't matter. Eventually, the strep will actually adapt to the antibiotic, and the antibiotic won't work anymore. But the thing is, in medicine, we treat one. You come in with one symptom, we give you one remedy, and that's one appointment. Okay, you come in with a strep throat. Okay, you got strep throat. You come in, you also have a backache, or your knee is swollen up, or something like that, or you get something else going on. We give you an antibiotic for that strep throat, and you have to make another appointment for us to come back and to take a look at your knee. Okay, that's how medicine is practiced, and so you have one symptom, one treatment, one appointment. Okay, we don't treat multiple things in one setting. That's just not how medicine is practiced. Now, in healing, is very different. We're going to get into that. The first thing to understand is a process. Okay, the body has two basic mechanisms with which it adapts to our surroundings. Okay, one is what we call a positive feedback loop. Okay, and a positive feedback loop reboots itself once it finishes. Okay, so it starts, goes, stops, starts up again. Okay, and just keeps going and going and going and going. A good example of this is the inflammatory process. Once it gets started, it just seems to get going and going and just keeps expanding and growing, right? The other process is what we call a negative feedback loop, and that's a check and balance system. Okay, so something goes up, something else comes up to bring it back down, or so on and so forth, and everything stays real balanced. It's our check and balance system. Okay, our body will use these different mechanisms to deal with the stress and irritation of our environment, until the irritation becomes so potent or has accumulated so much momentum that our body cannot adapt to that irritation anymore. Once we can't adapt, our body accommodates. Okay, if it can't adapt and overcome whatever it is that is irritating it, okay, it accommodates that irritation and just accepts it. All right, this is an important thing to understand. Now, the process of how we get sick starts with irritation. Okay, irritation is anything that causes stress in your system. Okay, it can be a spat with your spouse, it can be exposure to heavy metals. It could be accumulation of heavy metals. It could be an overgrowth of microbes, candida, all kinds of different things. Can be that irritation that starts us down this slippery slope. Okay. The next step, the body's response to irritation, is inflammation. Okay, so it gets irritated, then it gets inflamed. Okay, and you get this inflammatory process that starts. Okay, once you have this initial irritation, that triggers this inflammatory process where your body starts being inflamed. Okay, now tissue that is inflamed and stays inflamed falls apart. Okay, in your joints, we call that degenerative joint disease, or in your spine, we would call it degenerative disc disease. Okay, that's the joints of the spine have been inflamed for so long, been swollen for so long that they've just fallen apart. Okay. I equate it to wood that's waterlogged rots. Okay, and body parts that are waterlogged rot. Okay, we call it degeneration, but it's really the same thing. The tissue just starts to fall apart. Now, that process is very similar to what happens in wood. Okay, and for you out there that are into Oriental medicine, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, the whole equation of wood and tissue is very, very similar. Now, when you have this inflammatory process going on in the body starts to rot and it ferments. Okay, as that happens, that leaves you wide open to infection. Okay, all the infection needs is a location to inhabit. Okay, if you have the right environment for infection to inhabit, it will inhabit that as soon as you're exposed. Okay, so if you're consistently sick, or you're consistently, somebody sneezes and you get pneumonia, or you're constantly dealing with allergies, okay, and you're having all these reactions to everything that anything from chemicals to foods to anything. Okay, I mean, I've had people that could only eat 2 or 3 foods, could barely drink water, and as we worked with them, now they eat full, wide variety of foods and can drink just about anything, and kind of gets them in trouble now and then. But the whole process of becoming inflamed leads us to infection. Infection speeds up all degenerative processes. Okay, and think about it. You have what's called intracellular communication. That's communication within the different components inside the cell. And you have extracellular communication, where your 2 cells communicate with each other. It's real similar in function to Wi-Fi. Okay, and they send these electrical signals back and forth. Okay, but those signals can be impeded if the extracellular fluid, okay, the fluid around the cells, what the cells are floating in, okay, if that fluid is all full of waste and has accumulated toxins and things like that, that waste material will impede the communication between the cells. Okay, that happens in an inflammatory process. Okay, the next thing that happens in inflamed tissue is things like nutrients can't get to the cells as well. Okay, the circulation is reduced, so the nutrition can't get to the cell, number 1. Number 2, waste and toxins can't leave the cell as well in an inflamed system or an inflamed tissue, or so on and so forth. And so that whole process of nutrition and detoxification gets slowed down, really. It just doesn't stop altogether, but it slows down in inflamed tissue. One thing I want to kind of give you some pictures, some word pictures here. I live in Idaho, okay? So if we go out my backyard, we dig up an evergreen or pine tree out of my backyard, and we take it down to San Diego and we plant it on the beach in San Diego, there's no chance that that pine tree will survive on the beach in San Diego. All right, it won't survive. It can't possibly survive. It's the wrong environment to grow a pine tree, right? If I dig up, while I'm down in San Diego planting that pine tree, if I dig up a palm tree from the beach and I take it and plant it in my backyard, that palm tree will never survive in my backyard, right? Because you go from the beach to the mountains, the environment's totally different, right? The beach has the right environment to grow palm trees. The mountains have the right environment to grow pine trees. If we want to grow one thing or the other, we have to change the environment, okay? We can only grow certain things in certain environments. This is how our body is with infection, okay? I'll give you one more example here. When I was a kid, we used to go rat hunting. We lived in the city, inner city, and there were down the street there were restaurants, and they came and picked up the garbage on Tuesday, and we couldn't find any rats normally till about Friday. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we'd find all the rats we could ever want. Okay. Why was that? Well, Tuesday night, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, and then into Thursday, there wasn't a whole lot of food for the rats to be going. They didn't have food to eat, so they had nothing to go after, so they didn't come around. And so they were hard to find. They were sparse. There weren't very many of them, right? But by Friday, Saturday, Sunday, those dumpsters were full of food. Old food, waste, right? Just garbage, right? And the rats would come in to go after that garbage. And we could find them and go get them, right? In our body, if your body has accumulated waste, okay? If you want to get rid of parasites, okay? You get some gut issues and there's parasites going on down there, okay? The only reason parasites will take up residence in your gut is if they have something to eat, okay? If there's waste in there for them to eat, they will take up residence and eat. That's just what they do, okay? If you have the other thing with waste, if you have accumulated waste, that becomes a food source for things that would infect you. And what you have in reality is not necessarily an infection. What you have is infestation, is a more accurate, from a biological standpoint, more accurate term than infection. Infection means you caught something, where infestation is something's got into your system and overgrown, right? It's just an overgrowth. There's too much. A lot of times the things that cause disease only cause disease in large amounts. Viruses, very often, it's only when viruses start to replicate and get into large amounts that they cause symptoms. When bacteria, fungus, and these things, when they get into large amounts, when their population overgrows, then they cause issues. So think of infection more as an overgrowth, okay? And it's because of this inflamed terrain that you have inside your body, this environment inside your body that's all inflamed. Another example, if we took water, nice pure water, and we set it out on your front porch and left it there for 2 weeks, would you go drink that water? If we just take a pail, fill it with a clean water, set it out on your front porch and leave it there for 2 weeks? Probably not. Why? If you check the water, there's probably stuff growing in it, okay? Because water is a great medium to grow stuff in, okay? Things like to grow in water. Water is an essential element to all life, okay? So when we have this this inflamed environment in our body, it leads us to infection, okay? And that inflamed, the extra swelling and fluid in our system, as that gets muddied up by accumulated waste, that becomes a great place for infection or microbes to overgrow. And so you end up with this overgrowth, and that leads into the degenerative process, okay? So we have irritation starts us down the road to degeneration. So to recap the whole process here, we got irritation, okay? That is what initiates us down this whole process of getting sick, becoming ill, and degenerating, right? So irritation puts us on the path of inflammation, okay? Inflammation sets in, the environment gets all gunked up and messy, and that sets the stage for infection. Infection sets in, and that is like the fast track for us right down the road to degeneration, okay? This occurs in every tissue in our body, okay? It doesn't matter if it's your brain, your bones, your stomach, your intestines, your liver, your kidneys, it doesn't matter, your muscles, whatever. This is the process. Irritation, inflammation, infection, degeneration. That's the process. And we get causes to this are trauma. Okay, obviously, trauma is an irritation. But you got everyday wear and tear. You got toxicity. Okay, you got your environment. What's in your environment? What are you eating? What are you consuming? And what's in what you're consuming? What's in your water? What's in your food? What's in your supplements? What's in your medications? Okay, what are these things? What's in these things that are potentially toxic? And toxicity in some things is more a dose related thing. Other things like glyphosate, there's no, got things like glyphosate and mercury. There are no safe levels of those things. They cause immediate damage to your system. So that's toxicity. Now there's a real interesting little thing that I explain. The human body is made of 3 basic sets of components. You've got water, you've got the periodic table, and you got microbes. Okay, so your balance of the water in your system, the balance of the periodic table, all those elements, okay, there's all these different elements. Your body's made of those elements, okay, and it's made of different ratios of all those elements. Some things we hardly need any of those elements, okay, other things we need quite a bit, all right? And that's, we have the periodic table floating around in water in our system, acted on by microbes. Do you realize there's anywhere from, depending on the tissue, there's anywhere from 10 to 100 times more microbes than there are cells in your body, okay? Well, that's astronomical. Your body has 75 trillion cells. So if you have anywhere from 10 to 100 times more microbes, you're more microbes than you are human. Okay? And all of these play a massive role in the cellular balance of nutrition and toxicity. Okay? Nutrition are the things that you're made of, okay? The things that your body is made of is nutrition, all right? Toxicity is either byproducts of your body metabolizing these nutrients or accumulation of things that your body's not made of. Okay? And so if you have nutritional deficiencies, your body becomes this toxin sponge. Okay? If you have plenty of nutrients, there's no place for the toxins to plug into in your system. Let's say you cut your finger. Okay, that's an injury, all right? And that's an irritation to the tissue. Let's say you just leave it. You don't do anything with it. And you go throughout your day, you do some gardening, you take out the trash, you fix dinner, and yada yada, and all this stuff. And you never cleaned out that wound, you never do anything with it. You wake up next morning, your finger is throbbing in horrible pain. It's swollen, and you've got all this pain, all this irritation, all this inflammation, and you have what? You have an infection, okay? So, what happened? First, there was an irritation. There was that initial injury, okay? Then there was inflammation as a response to the injury, but then it got intoxicated, okay? It became toxic. There were toxins that got into that and expanded the inflammatory process, which reduced sweat, reduced circulation. Therefore, the immune system couldn't get into that finger to heal it, right? It couldn't get in there very well, and the stuff in the finger couldn't leave very well, right? So what happened? The next day, your finger's all swollen up, it's infected, you got microbes growing in there that shouldn't grow in there, and you know, it's starting to degenerate. If you don't do something, you'll lose your finger. All right? That's the process. So I want you to understand this irritation leads to inflammation. Inflammation opens you to infection. Infection fast tracks you to degeneration. All right? So I want to thank you all for tuning in. There's going to be many more of these webinars. We're very, very excited about these presentations. So thank you very much.